was a day very much like this in 1971 when I first encountered them. I was 29 years old. I came across a footprint. It was bigger than any animal I'd ever seen. That night, we heard these sounds that were horrific. These things were so huge, and the sound was so big, you could hear them pounding. I first saw Bigfoot 40 years ago, and I've been looking for it ever since. They're not lore, they're not legend, they're here. They're here amongst us now.
Legendary adventurer Ron Morehead, one of the world's foremost Bigfoot experts, has been at the center of this controversy for more than 40 years now.
I've dedicated my life to the subject. I want the world to know that these things are there and what I think they can be there for. There's got to be an answer.
In 1974, he ventured high into the Sierras, and for the first time in history, he recorded the actual sound of his voice.
Humans cannot mimic these sounds. The range supersedes what a human can do. We have a cryptolinguist who's trained by the Navy to translate languages. He has determined that they do, in fact, have their own language. That changes everything.
And welcome in, everybody. Greetings to you all from the Dark Radio Network Project here on America Disclosing Uncensored. With me is the man needs no introduction, Ronald Morehead. Listen, you have some of the most fascinating evidence out there ever. I don't know anybody that can dispute it. We have a lot of other people that are skeptical due to pictures, films, and we can refer to films and pictures now, even on Google. Mr. Morehead, check this out. I look things up. I like to see how things change, how the focus of history is. Now they're saying even the Patty film is a fiction of fiction. So here, I guess back in the day, terminology was being used different, and now they're just, putting it in place, giving it a different category. And that's a new fight that we're up against as we're in the community trying to do the best we can on all levels of all information, ufology, Bigfoot, anything in cryptozoology and more. It seems like a narrative is waging against us, even though, like you, with your research of all these years, are coming on, still standing strong. And thank you for that. I mean, you are, in my mind, I don't care what anybody else says. And I for what you've done, the doors you have opened with the people you have inspired, I want to thank you personally. And thank you so much for being with me. But it saddens me that I look at things that are supposed to be teaching us and keeping us informed, taking negative approaches when we know that these approaches that they're taking are, in fact, their own negativities, not ours. But it's mismanaging the information, sadly.
True. Yeah. Thanks for your introduction, and thanks for your comments.
I love your introduction. You know what? I said I can only give the best honor I can, because I could not make anything better than what you've done there.
That was a sizzle reel done by a production company years ago, a few years back.
Really good work. Really good work.
They did a good job. It's too bad they didn't have time to sell it. They went broke not too long after they did that with me, and they didn't have time to get it to a network to try to get rid of it. And that was a long time ago.
Right. But it's going to be here like Stairway to Heaven. No, I mean, truthfully, you cannot remove facts of history. The people that want truth will always stand there to protect it somehow, some way. We're going to have it in our archives. We're always going to put it out there because, me personally, I'm grateful for you.
The truth will always prevail too, no matter what tries to happen, just like our elections, everything else, the whatever happens, the truth will eventually prevail.
There you
maybe
go.
it might be 50 years from now, but it'll come out sooner or later.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I said to my grandchildren one day, they were saying, "Pat, you know, I see you're doing pretty good." I was like, "Yeah, you know, I'm trying to go out of this world, doing more for it. You know, making up for things that I couldn't do during earlier times." But you're exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. I do want to, in a way, conduct an interview, but not. I want to be friends with whoever I bring on and just have fun, theoretically or however. So, with what you were able to capture on the sounds, the verbiage, and the fact that you had things checked, has anything ever, because every time somebody tells me I'm going to send you something, it seems not to come, or says I catch sounds. Yeah, they're catching these screams, which I can only match up to a fact of there is proof of a cassette that I was able to come across, and a police testimony by two police officers that were giving a cassette to listen to, and it matched up to a sound of what they claim to be Bigfoot. Now I don't know who made the tape. It's a cassette. It's marked MT. It's one of those things. But these two officers heard sounds, and they were in. I made a I think I made a quick note of it. I believe it was somewhere in California, and they traveled up into Washington State. Anyway, they had a very bad experience, and they came back to work and they told some of their fellow officers about it at check-in and roll call in the morning before going on duty, and they all got laughed at. And the sergeant came over to them and said, "I used to work for the Forestry Game Commission, et cetera, under that state." He says, "I have something that might be interesting to you. When people used to come in and file reports of unknowns, we asked them to listen to this and tell them to stop the tape where they recognize the sound and then circle the number, because every sound had a number, a category, a number. And on that number came up the sound of Bigfoot." Now, it didn't sound nothing like yours. It was more of the presentation of the howl, that the howling, the roarness, lion sound of, kind of thing. And to me, that's a focus of information that we should never overlook. It doesn't match up to yours. So getting back to yours, we know that there's things out there vibing that military must know about, some things because of the map that we were talking in the green room about. And I'll deep dive into that for anybody listening further a little more. But did anything in your lifetime ever match up to the sounds that you got? And if they did, was anybody able to decipher what was said?
Good question. Ohio, they had a sound which I thought it plagiarized from mine. And I thought, well, I better go through all the sounds and see if it has or not, because I really thought that. Anyway, I forgot the guy's name right now, but a long time ago I found it, and I started going through all the clips that we'd released, that we'd copyrighted, that had been out there, because we had a lot of hours of these sounds from several years. And I couldn't match the frequency up with anything. So it was a sound very similar to ours. And I've had a lot of people tell me they've heard our sounds, but very few, none of them really out there recording them, So we were lucky. There was 6 of us in camp, and all of us were recording. That was Al Berry who really started the studies on the sounds to make them. Which he was a master's in science, and he went up there just to investigate. We took him in 1972, and he fostered the sounds at the University of Wyoming, and got a year-long study. If I'm a professor of engineering, sound engineering. And he showed a graph of where the sounds were, and said they couldn't have been speeded up or slowed down. They were not. They were original. No 60-second hum. Everything was perfect. It was just what we knew it was. But you get a professional behind that to stick his neck out. That's hard to do, by the way, because he got jammed about it quite a few times, trying to solicit some academia to study it. But having the master's degree in science, he knew what it took, and he just kept prying. He went to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University, went to Miniviv at Washington State. He went all over trying to find somebody that would grab a hold of these and not laugh at him, because it's amazing how academia a lot of times will put themselves in a classical box. Its parameters are well defined. They can't go out of those parameters, and that's not science. That's just not science. Quantum science is outside the box, and that's where I went, because a lot of anomalies have happened with these things around our camp, and I kept hearing them year after year from different people that I was talking to, and there has to be an answer for all those things. They just there has to be. There can't be a problem without an answer to it. So I got Al Berry, who had a master's, like I say, in science, said stick with science whenever you talk about this place, because if you talk about the strange stuff that goes on up here, no one's going to listen to you. So we didn't for a long time. But then when I started looking into science, I figured quantum science has a whole other aspect to this world that we live in, a whole other the universe that we're in. And I think when you get into quantum science, it's not pseudoscience, it's not the woo, it's not all that crazy stuff you hear about. It's answers. Quantum science will answer a lot of the stuff that's in the woo, a lot of stuff that people are just, they've experienced, but they got their own idea about it. But quantum science has got a science that will explain that. And that's what I've done with the stuff that was happening with us at the camp. That got me into my second book, The Quantum Bigfoot. And so that's how it kind of got going. But we was experiencing these Bigfoot. They had a Bigfoot, but I'm not sure what they were. They do have a language, a complex language, a cryptolinguist by the Navy who was trained to decipher transcriptions and to decipher a language, an unknown language, to see if it was a language. If it was a language, if there was any deception detected in it. And but no one's been able to tell me what they were saying. He only transcribed it as a language. And I had him vetted very carefully. He was a two-time graduate of the school in Monterey, California for languages, and it's a part of the DOD now, but he's very well. There's not too many people that have the perfect hearing that he had. I say had because he's hard of hearing now. He spent so many hours under what he calls under the cans, I guess. That guy is Scott Nelson, and he's been up to camp now a few times with me, trying to cooperate some more. And but no, as far as anyone being able to tell me what they say, I've had several people say I know what they're saying, but these people tell me something different, all of them. So how do you know which one to believe? I really wish I knew, because the night I was interacting with them in 1974, we were bold. They were bold. They were coming in to me, my friend and I, at the campsite before we ever went into the shelter. Normally they wouldn't interact or do anything, make the sounds or anything until we were inside the shelter. We were all highly armed. I mean, we had heavy guns. It was a hunting camp, and Bigfoot wasn't on anybody's radar. Just the guys went up there. It's 8 miles in the wilderness, 8,400 feet elevation, and it's a hard trip to get in there. So anyway, 1974 is the night I finally got to see one. And up till then, my daughter's seen him a couple times, and then my Johnson brothers got glimpses of him. Bill McDowell, my packing friend, he got a glimpse of him that same night I did. And but that's when I recorded the Samurai Cry, they call it, and Matt Moneymaker actually coined that. He heard it before he started BFRO. He sounds like a samurai. And so I've had a lot of people call it, hey, I've heard the samurai language, and it is a language, and that makes a huge difference to me, because language, according to Dr. Lieberman, Brown University, is only for humans. Humans are the only one with a voice mechanism, a vocal mechanism that can do sapient sentences like we're doing morphine streams of words. Now, everything communicates. All animals communicate, but they don't communicate like we do, like I'm doing right now. So that's what really put it over the edge. That means these things, and we've established that the tapes are real, represented an animal 8 foot tall, the little clip that he determined that by. And then Scott Nelson, two-time graduate of the Cryptolinguistic School of Languages, says they have a language, a complex language. And so they're talking. We knew they were talking, but we didn't realize the significance of that.
Right.
Until we finally, Dr. Lieberman, who accused Al Berry once of trying to hoax him, think he was a former student that he had flunked or something. But that wasn't the case. Al Berry never went to that school where he was. But anyway, if they have a language, and they do, only humans have that. So that means they have one of the same components we have, which is get all three of those things together, and there's something humanistic about them. And I mean, or there was something Bigfoot about us. Don't know which came first, but I think I got a speculation what came first. I think they came first. And I think because I believe in aliens, I believe in UFOs, like we all should now, since the government said we could, right? And I mean, Roswell was not a weather balloon. Everybody knows that now. So, there's been a whole network of concealment going on with our government.
Right.
And so, anyway, I think aliens have been coming in for eons, and they've messed with the genome of different species. And I think that's how Bigfoot came about originally. And that's what they are. But they weren't given the same attributes that we were. They're given different ones. And we were made years later by another high frequency being, which are going into the Anunnaki or something like that. But they were here messing around with the genome. And, excuse me, and we were made Homo sapiens sapien. And so here we are trying to catch up with what Bigfoot probably has had for a long time. And it's just something they were given. They can do things that we're not understanding, but I got theories on it, and that's what we can talk about.
Outstanding. So, yeah, and you're right. I mean, when you look at the whole playing field of everything, it doesn't matter what you believe or what you follow. Not this many people can be wrong about everything. We're wrong about hair samples when it comes to Bigfoot. We're wrong about every picture. We're wrong about every film. Like I said, now the Patty film was a documentary of fiction. I mean, that's Google's writing. This is their narrative of how they're trying to create a negative to me, impact of what the true facts are. I wish I was there to give you water if you needed something.
Actually, I had some here, but I just spilled it. So
do you need a moment?
Oh, go ahead. I can listen.
Okay, cool. All right. So, yeah, I mean, as far as, it doesn't matter. I mean, everything seems to be every sighting, every hair, as I was saying, every handprint, footprint. And, something that also came up to me not long ago, and I don't know how factual it was. Somebody sent me an actual butt print, and they plaster casted it. And I'll tell you, it's rather interesting. And it shows a little bit more than what I'm, going to explain. But you can imagine it had every detail. You had to look at it, understand it, to study it, that whatever, something sat down, and I don't know, we know it's not a bear's bottom. We know it's not a dog's bottom. We know what it's not, but what is it? So I have this picture, I hold it in my archives, and I call it the butt print, and a lot of people laughed at me about it. It's detailed all the way up to, number 2. I'll just say it like that, the cleanest way I can. And it makes you wonder, but we can't be wrong on every level, whether it's a UFO or not. And, I've in my life made choices to study things and research things for enjoyment purposes, but also for knowledge, because I experienced things at a young age and mysteries of a young age, and not understanding things. And as I got older in life, You were lucky enough to see Bigfoot. I was lucky enough to come across evidences of, but not see. But in my life, a story that everybody who listens to me knows about it, that I was playing with a light into a field. This is one case scenario that happened to me, but I think the most significant one, you probably didn't hear it yet, but I'm going to share it with you. It only takes a minute. I'm playing with a light, and it has a high, medium, low, and I'm scoping out the field across from my wood shop, because I do wood carving, chainsaw stuff in my free time. I'm not great. I make things look like them, but I'm not that detailed, Mr. Perfect kind of guy. It's like my research. I'm an expert at nothing, but I research everything because I love it. And I do this, and I'm clicking over in the field, and I'm watching, and I decide, I've been looking at the sky. I do a little broadcast show, What's Called in the Sky, and I'm always looking up to have something to talk about. And I'm seeing things, but nothing major. There's not a ton of movement. Satellite every once in a while. Something, I'm not sure what it is. Is it the aurora up in the upper stratosphere going 90,000 miles an hour that they don't talk about, or the development from them and what these new developments are for Space Force. But nevertheless, I have a really good area of a hotspot. I think I do. I decided to start flashing it up into the sky, and I did. Couple times, click, like low, medium, high, and it had like an infrared light thing on it. The 2 little beams, they did nothing, but they were there. It's a selling point for nothing, basically. But I bought it, so click, And suddenly, I just got this suspicion to look to my left side, and I did. And I'm sitting at a bonfire, and I look over into my driveway, which is massive. In circumference, about 50 feet of a circle, like a basketball shape, slight supple dome. A light lights up, white, with like a marbleization in it. It's the best I can describe, like crackled glass. And I said to myself, did I just see something light up? Then I did it again, and it lit up. And I was like, ah. And I did it again, and it lit up again. Then the hairs went up on the back of my neck, and I asked myself, what the hell did you get yourself into? What is this? And I knew what it was in my head. I'm collecting my thoughts, and it was some type of unidentified flying object. I start calling for the people inside who never heard me, which is the strangest part. You know, I had family inside the camp, and I'm like yelling, nobody's hearing me. And through that, it was like they knew I was startled, and they decided to, or whatever it was, decided to just vanish, and it did. As I look back over, then I'm seeing these new satellite lights that are really extra bright in the sky. You know, they're not stars now. We have all this new technology up there that's very bright, and it illuminates. And it was there again. And my mind was just blown. That was one thing that I went through. It was short, it was sweet. And one thing I like that I always say is, what did I miss? Why didn't anybody hear me? I know I was yelling. I heard myself. Some people say I tried to yell and I couldn't yell. And I didn't run into any of that. But I would like to do a regression. I would like to know if I missed anything, or if I misunderstood what I saw in some way. And that would be my own remedy of easement, I think. So that was just one. And I had another one outside of that too, where I was with my daughter in the backfield one time. And it wasn't that we saw a craft. It wasn't a light like that, but it was a discharge of this beautiful green and energy, just illuminating down like butterflies or fairies, just gently, but the prettiest color green that you might want to go out and paint your motorcycle or something, one of these candy colors. It would cost you astronomical money. And I thought to myself, and my daughter at that point in time, who now studies paranormal and does her own investigations, I think because of things around our lives like this, and hers with mine, she grabs my arm, and she's like 12 years old. And she goes, and what the hell was that? And the strangest, loudest voice of a scream. And I'm like, what'd you say? Because, to me, she would never say, and what the hell was that? But she did. And I was like, well, that was the first time my daughter openly spoke to me, And I looked at her and I was like, and I don't know. And what did you say that for? But nevertheless, so we saw that. The funniest part about it, MUFON, I'm watching on TV on one of these network channels, and I came across an area about 35 miles from me. They were having the same sighting of the same illumination but they were seeing a craft. So evidently we had something on our tree line. The only thing we saw was the discharge due to the magnification of energy, of electromagnetism. I don't know. And it just propelled no sound in either case, and just, it was gone. It vanished. But again, I was at awe. And that was early in probably, I'm thinking 2011, maybe 2013, when that occurred. I would have to look at some of my notes. I tried to reflect it. And what helps me come to that conclusion, the old school things that, we come up from an old school where our parents used to sometimes throw an old tractor tire out around a tree and let's put the tree in. Then all the kids signed their names. We did that. So I had a very good correlation of time that matched up to what had happened just 30 miles away from me, where people in MUFON showed up to do an investigation. And I didn't call them. I didn't talk to them. I learned about John Ventry, who I did some shows with, who was on the History Channel Hangar One also, that he was involved. And I told him my story, but I never called those in. But I knew in my heart that back then what I saw was probably the same thing due to shadowing, light, displacements. My eyes weren't seeing the whole thing, the whole picture. but the colors that it illuminated, and in a way, it was just beautiful. On the other hand, I didn't see a craft that I could articulate, and that's why I would like to be regressed. But the light in itself, and my driveway was huge, and I'm thinking if this was the bottom of the craft had to be 200 by 200 by 200. I don't know. What did I miss? That bothers me the most, Ron. That bothers me the most.
Well, regression might be your answer. That would be, yeah, because it can go different time. Time don't exist, as you know.
Yeah.
That's hard to get your head around, but
well, yeah, I know, but until they put the clock in place, then it articulated time because it articulated rob the man from cradle to grave and put you under a rule and a thumb, and that's what I call that. That's my narrative of how time matters to them, not to me.
Yeah, I seen a UFO at our camp up the Sierra Camp one time, and just once. It's when all the Bigfoot stuff was happening during that time. And it was just a big blue ball, controlled, came down huge. Came down, I lost it behind the trees. I mean, we didn't see it anymore after that. But it was happening when the Bigfoot stuff was happening. So I bring that up because I think there may be a connection with the UFO. In fact, the Huffington Post, 2012, there's an article about 1888 out of the Eureka Times that says that 20% of Bigfoot sightings are connected with a UFO. And they had a rancher and a rancher and some Native Americans witness this small moon coming down and 3 crazy bears jumping out of it. That's one of the first UFOs printed about. I guess there've been stories about them for ages. And you go down to South America or anywhere except the United States, and UFOs are kind of commonplace. They don't think a lot of them because they see them. They see aliens too, and it's just amazing how our government and this country just kind of hides a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening here that we don't know about. And now the whistleblowers are coming out since they passed that rule that they can't be killed anymore.
Yeah, it seems we're under a different type of movement without a doubt. And I'm glad to see a focus being led in that direction because it's going to help the whole scenario of what we're dealing with in communities and different levels of information, as well as, the big P, the political side of the agenda things. But and I like what you said when you go back. There's some biblical content, and I know you study some of this, as you were saying earlier, in ways that certain people had friends they considered to be hairy men. Now, this goes back many, many moons ago. Leif Erikson had something in his memoirs. It said something when he met the indigenous. He also seen an unidentified hairy man. Now, can I find that paper exactly? No, but I've heard it been repeated, and I heard it also mentioned in lectures. And I thought, well, evidently I don't have every piece of information, but people are finding things, which is fantastic. Here's another thing that blows my mind. When we get into how long ago people were connecting. Where I find is when you go into some of the oldest classified ads in newspapers, people were reaching out to classified newspapers. This was early technology. And they were reaching out. I saw something. I don't know what it is. I live here. Did anybody else see it? People would respond back like a love mating match thing that they came out with. And they started connecting through letters and through newspapers. And that happened like 150, 160 years ago. There are ads out there in newspapers where people were doing that, reaching out. Now we come into a different time of technology and we're bombarding them. It's backfiring on their narrative of suppression in my mind. But we do know when you go back in the past and bring it forward, you discover a lot. And I think the further we dig back, we learn more. The same as the hunters and gatherers. They didn't have a grocery store, and they went out and they hunted and they saw things. They talked about it. And I know many hunters that talked to me, said after their sighting, that contacted me through what I do, I'll never go back in the woods again. Do you think it's safe in the woods, Ron? I mean, could you just weigh in?
Well, some of your guests may have seen it. Discovery Channel sponsored a trip about 2 years ago into the Portlock, Alaska. I was in, I think, episode 5 and 6 or 4 and 5, something like that. They wanted a Bigfoot quote unquote expert, which I'm not sure there are any experts, but I do a little bit more than most, I guess, because I've been doing it for so many years. But anyway, they took me up there. Nice helicopter ride from Homer, Alaska, into Portlock, and I got to survey the area from a helicopter for a while before we landed. And so after a while, I got to thinking. I've seen pictures of how they were really doing a lot of fishing there. Now, for those who don't know, I guess who don't know, that Portlock, Alaska was abandoned in the late 1940s, 1950, because of a hairy monster-like, Bigfoot-like creature was killing the villagers there. I guess they'd lost about 30 people. Everybody just picked up and left. And the heirs wanted to reestablish it because they owned the property, and that's who was there, was the heirs to the property. And so they want to know, is it safe? Well, gosh, puts a little pressure on me, don't it? If you're coming out and tearing your arms off, no, I don't think it's safe. But after looking it over, I thought they over timbered it a lot. Really timbered. You could see where new growth that came up, but it had been timbered before, and really substantially. And I think that has something to do with it, because these things don't like us disturbing the trees like we do, cut them all down, clear cutting. A lot of reports off clear cutting, a lot of Bigfoot reports. Bigfoot's watching people do that and screaming at them and stuff like that. I got called up into a place in Washington one time where native tribe, I'd spoke there before with them, and they said, hey, you ought to get up here. These things are around again. And I said, well, what's going on? They said, oh, we're just cutting some trees down over here, build some more places. And I said, well, stop cutting the trees. He said, well, they're up there yelling. I said, well, they don't like you cutting the trees. So that's what happens. It seems like I've talked to so many people that they were cutting trees. When I told these guys up in Portlock, I said, if you just respect the property more and stop damaging it, don't overfish it. They were also mining the area. Don't do those things, and you probably was encroaching upon their areas, or your ancestors were. Unfortunately, there's nobody around right now to talk about it because it's 70 years ago or 80, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I said, just you can come back and just 3 or 4 of you, and don't be aggressive. And because I can only imagine that if these things, if they were cutting too many trees down, that came out of the woods and screaming at somebody, a big 12-foot tall gorilla-looking something, they'd probably shot at it. That probably would have pissed it off. That probably would have tore their arms off, and because they weren't like a bear. It was really just mangled bodies, and they weren't eaten.
Yeah, so that's the most fascinating part and point that you bring up. We know when we look at the other wildlife that usually surrounds the focus of attacks in the normality sense. When you go out of it, what is capable of, and that's why we all must be careful and pay attention, what is capable enough of ripping a limb or a leg from a body?
Yeah.
You have to wonder. We know that there's police reports that back up these types of issues and theories. I apologize for interrupting your thought there.
Oh, that's okay. Now, they can break. We had in our camp some limbs that big around were twisted off over by the spring, and just twisted off and pull out. Like it was effortlessly, but they put them up on top of our shelter. Earlier that year, we had resurfaced the shelter with fresh plastic, and then put deadfall on top of that from the spring. But that had all dried up. The next morning, this night after I recorded them and saw one, next morning we looked up and there was 2 fresh ones up on top of the shelter that had been twisted off by the spring. There's also, when I stepped out of the shelter that morning, moved the door log out of the way, I seen this fresh track out there. But Bill, my partner, he dropped the scope off his rifle when he walked through the door unknowingly, and it fell inside that track, and it was not suppressed down. So I know the track had to be made before we got there. So that means they knew who we were when we were leaving the bottom of the trail. We ran across something a couple hundred yards up the trail. We don't know what it was, but it spooked our animals. Could have been a deer, could have been a bear. We didn't think much of it. But then later on, way up the mountainside there, I found a fresh track right perpendicular in the trail. So I knew we was in for something. Well, they're still around, whatever's happening here. So the time we got into camp, I think they were already there. And they had already done this twisting of the limbs. They'd already been there messing around our camp and waiting for us. That shows a very high intelligence. It's not just like an animal. Most people are looking for the animal in the woods, and that's what most people think they are, just an unidentified great ape running around out there. But they're more than that. They're sapient beings, I think, and they can think about things. They can out trick you. They sense your energy. They are really intuitive type of beings. It's the ones we ran into in the Sierras are that way. So I don't know if all of them are the same. In fact, I feel quite good about saying that they're not all the same. I think some of them have been created by different type of aliens and given different attributes. So I think some of them can be very different than others. Some of them can be aggressive with different agendas, and some of them can be benevolent and want to help you. But they're really nothing's supposed to really interfere with our karma. What we're supposed to, our decision making. And I think that when these things say they mind speak to you, something like that, well, that's called quantum entanglement. But they have to be on your frequency to do that, and they do that with some people. People ask me, "Have you ever had mind speak?" Well, not that I know of. Maybe that's why they were trying to talk to me in 1974, because it's obvious that they were trying to ask me something, and you can hear it on the tapes I got. And I don't know what they were saying. In fact, I wasn't even sure that they were asking me something. I was just trying to mimic them then. And that's when we got a little bit of a laugh coming back at us, I think. So I'm not sure what they want to say, but I'm too analytical. I think about things too much, trying to figure out where this thought came from, where that thought came from, and maybe that's why they couldn't mind speak to me, couldn't get on my frequency. I don't know, but everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, as Tesla said, as we know. We are energy at the most minute level of our existence. We're energy vibrating at a frequency. You find that frequency, you can change matter, and that's how Christ did his miracles through quantum physics. He said we can do the same thing, but you got to find the frequency. How do you do that? There's a way to do that through meditation, through just making sure everything's in coherence, from your pineal gland to your heart to your brain. Because your brain up here is going to analyze everything like mine used to. I'm getting better at not doing that. Just go by your gut feeling nowadays, and that generally leads you into what's right. So are they dangerous? They can be. I just tell people, keep your guard up because you don't know what to expect. But we are supposed to have our own experiences, and we're supposed to respond to it with our own decisions. And I think by doing that, we'll respond. If you respond properly with love and compassion, those are two major words right there, which is very important. Respond to your situations with love and compassion. You will advance to your next level, which we live in a third dimensional environment. There's more dimensions out there that we just don't see. Our eyes only pick up certain frequencies. We only see within 430 and 770 terahertz. That's our frequency range of our eyes. But you got all these other frequencies out there that are there. Some people are able to glance and see a ghost, or some of your camera's eyes can pick up sometimes more than what your eyes can. And that's why a camera can see an orb when your eyes may not. And a lot of animals can see better than we can, and they see a different frequency. But I'm saying all that because people need to know there's so much more that we don't see, so much more we don't hear or even smell. A bear's olfactory sense is 20 times better than ours, and they can smell you coming from a mile away. And that's if you're downwind from them anyway.
Yeah, I've heard that even where a bear can sense and smell food up to from what I read, up to 5 miles. I don't know if that's factually true, but I've heard that the intensity of their ability there was remarkable, and it was tested and compared in cases. So I guess scientifically we have a little information there. So 100%, I'm on board with that, and as well as some of the other things that you just spoke about. Love, compassion, and energy and vibration. And I think people need to find that element and bring it in closer to oneself. Maybe they do. That could be the whole detail of the information that we don't understand stepping into their home.
Yeah. I think they want us to, because they want the earth to be saved, and we're screwing it up, with our wars and all our messing things up. So we just got to be better people as a human species, and we're not showing that enough. I think this whole Earth has to raise its vibrational frequency up a little another level, and get rid of the warring, get rid of the killing, get rid of all this stuff going on overseas, and just be better at everything. And again, you get better by showing don't be a victim of anything, because whatever you're going through, you're supposed to experience, and you just got to respond to it properly with love and compassion and
There you
empathy.
go.
So that's what we're here for. And that's
Yeah.
how we graduate. That's how we get it. If you don't learn it the first time around, you're going to have to learn it sooner or later. So I believe in multiple embodiments, because your spirit or energy cannot die. That's physics. That's science, really. That was first postulated in 1847, and then it's been established now mathematically through years and years of study by physicists. So energy, which we're basically we're in two. There's two elements in our body. I mean, two major components in our body, which we have our physical body, which is controlled by our brain. We have an ethereal body, which is our spirit, our soul, our consciousness. That stuff is different. And that's what can't die. And that's what's going to change forms according to physics. And if you're a religious person, when you die, you think you're going to go to heaven. You kind of hope so anyway. And if you're a physicist, you're just going to change forms. And that's the way energy works. It just doesn't die. And that's hard for people to understand because they can only see what they can see with their three-dimensional eyes. And I think they got to understand how much more there is out there. Like even your frequency, your sound frequency. A dog can't. A dog can hear ultrasound, and large animals like giraffes and big animals can communicate in infrasound. But we don't hear those things with our ears. It just tells you again we have limitations with our human body. And once you understand that there's more going on around you, there's probably things around both of us right now that we just can't see. And until you get into the sense of feeling that because they're here. And things are here that want to help us, but they can't really do it physically in this dimension. At least they're not supposed to. We have to carry out our karma, which again, it's hard for people to understand this sometimes, but you've chosen this life, and it's kind of holographic anyway, but that's what three-dimensional is. And you've chosen this so you'll have a chance to respond again. Because if you screwed up last time, or several last times, however that goes, you got a chance to respond again and do it better. And I think we all have to learn to do that. Don't get mad at the little old lady that didn't start up when the light turned green, might have doubled her medication. Who knows? Anyway. I'm rambling on here. If you want to jump in and ask me something, I love it.
No, it's fine. I was actually enjoying it because what you're talking about are things that metaphysics and stuff that I study. And it's warming to know that I'm not alone. I mean, sometimes I feel alone. Yeah. You put it out there and people are like non-receptive to a positivity of a message. And, it's like when you get out of bed, the old military video that was out there that many people seen where the commander says, you make your bed, you brush your teeth, you comb your hair, and that is the start of how your future works and your own quantum development of that perception of time in your day, in your future. And you are that answer. We all are that answer. And it's how we address the matter with a positive outcome. We can be faced with the most negative thing, but you can also turn your back to what's negative and focus on positive, or direct your positivity into the focus of the negative. It's like quantum and force and all that stuff. And Aristotle and different people talk about quantum entanglements and different scenarios. I talked about them last night, actually, with Maximum, who was on the show Chasing Prophecy with me. And we deep dove into a lot of this subject matter for a while. But it's a focus point of fact and truth, and it's all up to people. And if we all just unified a little more and learned how to collectively put our energies together in an important way, in important fashions, with freedom of life and liberty of how we live and within the realm of this reality, things would be so much better. But I think we're getting there. I see a lot of things negative, but I see a lot more positive. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that people keep going into that direction, because we need cures. We need safety. We need to protect children. We need to do things that are ethical with normalcy. And again, we're seeing a battle of diversity I don't agree with, but I think the best way to address it is sometimes to avoid it. You don't get under their skin any better unless you walk away from them and laugh in their face. And sometimes to me, that's more pleasurable than to say, oh, I'm going to post something about that, you know.
Yeah, some people just want the aggression, the antagonistic type approach, and want to
Yeah,
argue about something. But I don't like that. It just lowers your frequency. We all have a frequency in our
bingo,
bodies too, and
bingo.
if you get into negativity, you're going to lower your frequency, and you're not going to do yourself any good at all.
No.
If you want to really do yourself good, do good. That's
You're
all.
right. You're right.
And then really, the Bible teaches that stuff too. You know, a lot of ancient texts teach how the good is what you're supposed to do. I've been getting into the cuneiform text a little bit, and how, you know, if you think about even the book, our book, how much it's been manipulated, the
Mm,
Bible that most of us studied from eons, and all languages were come about through the cuneiform text, which was for the Sumerians and the Anunnaki, which were the sky people, the powerful ones, and you know, you've
right.
heard all that, I'm sure. Uh, but just about all languages, written languages, came from that beginning, and Hebrew did too. And you get into that, and you realize just each whoever's in power at the time is going to make it fit for, so they can control it. But that's the problem with religion. Sometimes it's all about control, and it divides us really. What it does, and we shouldn't be divided. We're all one consciousness, one part of one something great, and we want to evolve into that. And we're supposed to do that in this lifetime, and that's what I'm hoping to do, and that's why I'm doing this right now. That's why you're doing this right now. That's why there's so
Yeah.
many programs now that, and every time I'm on one, I try to say this stuff because I think it's so important the word gets out. If there's only one person out there that hears this and wants to go with it, well,
Mm.
then we've accomplished something,
That's
and
my
that's
thing.
what,
If one ear hears me,
yeah,
I accomplish my goal, and that's the
yeah,
way I look at it. It's not about really. It's not about numerology, even though there's focus points of importance in some ways. It's really about that one. If one becomes one, that's the most fascinating part of it. That you can actually collect the one because you concentrated on it for them and with them. Hey, we have a couple questions. Do you mind if I ask them to you?
go ahead.
James.
No,
Okay, great. James Wigington. Hello, brother. Fascinating man, too. I've done some shows with this guy. I knew he'd step in here. It says, Ron, you said it was a hunting camp. Do you hunt? So he's basically asking you a personal question. Do you hunt?
I used to hunt. I don't hunt anymore. I stopped hunting years ago, and I did hunt at the Sierra camp because that's how I became part of the group. They were all hunters when this happened to them, and I was friends with them, but I wasn't a hunter. But one of the guys got freaked off, and he just would go back, and the wives were all worried because they didn't know what they were dealing with up there, some kind of a monster, and they didn't know if it was going to get eaten or carried away or what was going to happen. So they wanted him to go back and check out and see what's wrong with the guys because they hadn't came out, and he wouldn't go back by himself. So I went with him, and that's how I got involved with the camp. And
Okay.
I became a hunter after that just so I could be part of the group, and that's what the camp was all about since 1958. You know, these guys have been going up to the Johnson brothers, and so I enjoyed being up there with them. But my adventurous spirit was in me, and at 29 years old when I first started, for me, nothing can hurt me, so I wasn't worried about these things. I just wanted to know more about them because we were all pretty much into scriptures and where maybe giants came from. That's where I went to. Bill and I both were members of a huge church down there, and we. I was raised religiously, but after looking into so many things, I got to say we're just all spiritual beings. And religion sometimes just separates us because there's so many religions that seem to want to teach you got to jump through this hoop to go to heaven, and you know what is heaven? You know, it's up another dimension. And I talk to I know these physicists and these doctors in academia from being in this so long, and they all talk about how energy can't die. And okay, well, your consciousness goes on. Well, where's it go to? It just changes form, according to them. Religious people say, well, we're going to go to heaven. Well, science, quantum science, and spirituality are synonymous, in my opinion. So you get into quantum science, I encourage everybody to start looking into that because researchers who are researching this are working on one leg if they don't get the other leg in quantum science. They're blinded by what can be, That's why I also talk about our personal limitations and the different dimensions too that are out there that we don't see, hear, or smell, or and get into it that way. But yeah, I've studied the Bible quite a bit about the Nephilim, and I think that possibly could have been the Anunnaki because they were here. They were called the powerful ones. And you look into the Cuneiform text, and supposedly it's been mentioned Elohim,
Elohim,
yeah,
Elohim, yeah,
Elohim, Elohim.
yeah,
Same thing has been mentioned like 2,500 times. I've
yeah.
gone through there and counted them, but each time it was in the plural form. That's a hard one to crack. I mean, when the time it got into the Hebrew Bible, it was God here, God there. But you think about all the different things God was doing, and some of them just don't pan out to a God of love. I think the Anunnaki were probably doing things to excel the human race because they want to control them. I'm not sure, but there's enough there that people should be thinking about it and looking into it because I believe in a divine consciousness. There's one consciousness, and the Anunnaki are part of it, but there's good ones and there's bad ones, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
they're the ones.
Well, there were two brothers who were colliding, Inky and
Inky.
Inlay. Yeah, and one was actually a little bit not as bright as the other, but was against what the other brother was trying to do. And I think that's where these cryogenics and biogenics probably all started to come from. And there's information out there that really leads down that path. And in ways, when we look at other subject matter, when you look at certain factors of Neanderthal just disappeared. And I wonder in my head, you have the big giant ape, of course, and speculations there in China it was found and whatnot. And then you have Neanderthal. I mean, they could have been playing with that species. And when I get pictures and I look at them and try to understand Cro-Maga and Neanderthal and all this, and you use a format of what's called picture and measuring, like you're bringing them together. It's pretty ironic how they add up to and have factual features of, like, when we see examples of the Patty film, which is one of the most clearest face shots, but also see a diversity of differences, which, when I did the homework on it, and I did it for a while, I got tired of it. I went back to it. And basically, you take a picture, Ron, and you put another one into it, and they're starting to show this technology. That's the magnificent part about, some of the social media is what they're doing now. They're trying to engage to, I think, enlighten how deception works. And I think it's actually, they're telling us a message that this is part of our history of the inner blending of how things have happened, how seeding it occurred, and how development and different cultures came about. I mean, from my theory of point, and I see that when I float the pictures together and I lower the jaw a little bit or the height of the head, and it creates a conformity of a different face and a culture. It's mind blowing. And
Yep.
the information and apps are now being shared, but not everybody's looking at them. And I think it's just a way for me to say that's the big playground. These people probably had something without doubt to do with it. And if we go back further, we look at emerald tablets and some of the other um, uh, sources of information. Some people would be heartbroken in ways because we all learned and we're brought up a certain way. But,
Right.
we're finding out that certain ways we brought up were actually focused upon a man's thought and done by a man's hand. Not when you look at the fact that when you look at the fact of all the books out there, and I know we're supposed to be doing Bigfoot. Hang with us, guys. We love you. But when you do that, and a man is surrounded by men, some who had trouble with pronunciations, all yet have books. That means that there was placement by somebody's hand that had an acknowledgement for something greater, and I call that greater a negative control mechanism. Because every book was written the way I see it when I read them. comparable to each other as if they were all created through the same facility, like Harvard or Cambridge, a college, a foundation of writers and thinkers that all work together in an ancient think tank of how to create these books. And I'm not saying that they don't hold good facts. Yes, a lot manipulated. I've been told by a couple people who claim to be scholars in that area, saying that 40 books were manipulated or pretty much totally removed from the original informations. And we're still seeing changes put into the books today when we come to the present. Well, this isn't necessary. Burial used to be sacred. Now you can burn. So one time it was burned, then one time it was burial, and now again you can be cremated. Just different terminologies of words, but back to the same scenario of narrative. And it's like a flip. But, that catch 22 is where people need to focus if they want to deep dive and look into what you're studying right now. And it's fascinating stuff. I love it myself. I don't know how, but anyway, sorry for
you think about all the Bigfoots have been seen around the world, or these things they call wild man or Yeti or whatever they want to call them. But I think they've also crossbred with indigenous people, and that's diluted some of them down and made some of them more human-like, which means they'd have to have 23 pair of chromosomes. Somewhere along the line, the 24 pair that we used to have as a troglodyte have been snipped and cut. So we have 23, or been fused together, I should say. And you put that together, plus that the telomeres have been shortened. Now our life has been shortened to 120 years maximum. Pretty well, that's what they say.
Right.
But yet men used to live a lot longer, and we don't now because of that, and it's because we would probably get too smart too quick or something like that. The longer you're alive, the more you're going to learn. You hope anyway. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's quite a few different types of these things out there. So back to your older question, are they safe or not? Well, just keep your guard up and don't worry about a gun. I wouldn't worry about it a bit. I carry a gun all the time when I go in the woods, just because. Well, first of all, I shouldn't say all the time, because I'm not afraid, and your fear is your enemy. And if you're afraid, then that's going to be sensed in your aura, and they'll play on that, because these things, at least the ones I dealt with and the ones I've heard about, are they could toy with you. And we're talking about Bigfoot now, so.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, we'll focus back there a little bit, but hey, in this world, it's freedom of speech, and on this show, I talk about everything. I don't mind it, and I think everybody understands it, respects you. But I want to say hi to Squatchman. He did show up. Hi to Ernie Dubois. He showed up. He's the man that saw the two blue eyes and could see the prints of his hands, and he had sign language being kind of used.
Really cool.
Yeah, very interesting story. I'd love to have you talk to those guys sometime. And I know you're very busy. No pressure there, but very intriguing stories. Very intriguing. There was a couple questions that were pre-sent into me. Let me see if I can find them here. Okay, one was, do you have any regrets on the time that you put into your research? I don't know why, but it was a question.
No, not at all. I've been all over the world. Been in South America, been in Moscow, Siberia, Nepal. I have no regrets at all. It's all been good experiences. I've been very fortunate in my life. I used to make a lot of money, and I was able to do these things at my own expense, most of them. They paid my way into Russia just to go and take me into the Siberian place where they saw the wild man. But no, the only regrets I have, I think, is I'm trying to think. I gotta think real hard. I must have a regret somewhere.
Well, in a way, I mean, you became.
I'm glad I stopped hunting I'm glad I stopped hunting. I'm glad I stopped hurting things, anything, because I think we're supposed to be respectful of.
Yeah, I did the same. I really did. I did the same.
And its creations. But I have a theory, and I'm not sure I'm the only one with it, but I think that every entity on this planet has been put here for a reason, for us to. We have to respond to it. It's a spider or a snail or whatever it is. I just don't believe in it. Well, I don't like spiders. I got to be honest there. I just step on one, but
yeah.
But we should. I had a secretary one time. She'd actually take a spider outside and let it loose. She found one in our office. But I think that we're here to learn sometimes from those animals and not kill them or hurt them. We have a tendency. We're a warring species, and I think we have a tendency to kill things we don't understand. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's going on. I think that's
It's
what
like
we're going on Port Lock,
it's like
Alaska.
it's like we judge by looks, which is negative. And
Right.
some of where I think that comes from, and here's a deep dive, and that's not Bigfoot, but it's the same when growing up in this country for me. I'm younger than you. I'm 64, but still observed and paid attention to things. And what I learned was when I was with people and worked with people of all colors, we could break bread, talk about anything. We shared stories of family, love at work, and more. But when I went home and I turned on the TV, and turned on or listened to a story, it was all about a war. It was always about a different negative narrative. And it was like teaching, always putting the fact into people's minds, negativity points about countries. And I don't think it's the people, I don't think it's the country. And I know you're going to agree with me. It's always about the leadership that of the agenda.
Control the narrative.
Yes, because we as people, and that's being this, and I agree with you. Creation is us, and we are create. We were created to be able to create, but not just us as human beings, but everything on this planet has intelligence and reproductive abilities, and we must never take that off the table. I guess we have the need to survive, we have a need to eat, but again, theoretically, what's the safest way? In some ways, I had thoughts cross my mind about picking an ear of corn that I grew being negative as a food resource that my body actually needed, because again, anything that has the same credibility to do what I can do as a human being, but it is what it is. Don't drink water because it has intelligence, and water does have intelligence. If you talk negative to water and freeze it, it freezes one way. Tested in fact. You talk to it positively, it freezes different. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that.
A
And
lot of people
I still eat hamburgers too, by the way.
Yeah, it's
I don't
crazy.
go kill the cow.
How far do we go with it, but protect it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
I don't begrudge anybody that needs to eat and eat.
Right.
I eat and just.
Yeah, we have to. But again, this is the discernment of narrative that works and how it crushes everything. All right, let me get back to a question here and see if anybody else has anything. Well, James Wiggington did bring up, I guess this goes back to when we were talking about ufology and UFOs. Roswell, there was a that crashed in different distances away. I've only ever been able to uncover 7, but James does his homework. He could be very right on that. And I think it was over a 3-year span that there were discoveries of done crafts and occurrences that had happened in the Roswell or in the surrounding of that area from Roswell. But good point to bring up, man. You're a rock star. You always do that kind of stuff. If anybody has anything else to ask, please do like, share, do all that stuff. I do all my work for free. I don't ask for subscriptions, nothing like that. I just like to get the word out. But and again, I want to thank you for everything you've done. How you holding up? You okay for a little bit more?
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can hang on a little bit.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to bring up that you feel is important in the Bigfoot community to any of the newbies that are coming into this scenario who are all hyped up? And I know you've said go into the woods with consciousness, but safety things, anything that you could share to the younger generations?
We're all being indoctrinated for UFOs and for aliens, slowly but surely, from sightings from our government uncovering things now, and from the movies you see. Cartoons even the kids watch, they're showing aliens. So when it does happen, it's going to happen a little bit. They're just feeding us what they think we can handle. There's a lot going on our government does know about, and they're going to give us what they think we can handle. So just that's so we can accept it when it does come down on us, which is going to come down. If there's ever a nuclear blast going on somewhere, which they do stop those, I think aliens do, and it's pretty much documented now. They've done a couple of times. Because they really it sent a whole message to the universe when we popped that one over Japan that time, and it just frightened everybody that we was going to blow this Earth apart, and they don't want us to do that. This is a jewel of the solar system, and it's got everything that anybody wants, would it be an alien or a human, and we can all be together and be okay. We just have to learn how to ascend and graduate from this three-dimensional environment and treat the Earth better. I've said that. I say that all the time because we have to do that. We just have to, or we're going to die as a species and have to come back again a couple 100,000 years.
Yeah, well, time is of no importance, as you said.
Right.
It doesn't really exist. To me, it's just that roll of thumb of the clock, But nevertheless, you're absolutely right there. Pretty fascinating stuff, and I do agree with you because we've seen examples where there is a reaction to how man reacts. Sometimes I wonder when I go off the page and thought and out of the box, and I opened up Pandora's fascinating, vast influences in my life. We know that, they're seen in times of war more. They're seen over areas where special installations of certain materials and where certain things are stored that are not so much safe. We know that they have shut down bases. We know that they have made examples out of our own military soldiers. There is actually litigations in place still now going on in the government through the military due to abductions of our own people and military, of military personnel on our bases. You don't hear about these things. That type of subject matter is not important. It shouldn't be talked about, but you're absolutely right. There's like a drip. It's happening. There's many proofs as to how it's happening. Yes, I've seen things. Many other people have. More people are coming on. The sad part in ways is how far is technology, and have we actually excelled in the reverse engineering with the military-industrial complex system of the deep state? Because we have the shadow, we have the deep. One narrates, the other one works. It works in different levels, but we have these places. We know we do. We have one in Pennsylvania that they talk about that does it. Right, Pat. The lower levels of right, Pat, what I call below level 7, where it comes into interfering with biogenetics versus reverse engineering. There's levels. People have come up. People are talking about them, and they influence good information to us on many levels, more than what I'm talking about. But I think if they have been lucky enough or fortunate enough or made an agreement and traded off in possibly some way, because we do hear to go off. I go off on this sometimes in other podcasts, but if we have an agreement, how far, will they get involved because we've allowed them under an agreement to mislead within our own government information of what they're allowed to take, abduct, and more. And that's where David comes in when he gets into his missing 411. I do abduction 911 because I call it with ground zero, child zero, the vanished that are just simply gone. I think they're working in larger levels to do many things to advance us, but also for purposes for themselves. And that part worries me a little bit, me as a person, when I look into that information, because I believe we're all born to be part of this earth and we have the right to live a life on this earth. But we don't write the book of when it starts, when it ends. It's just here. But amongst it, it's a big narration of what we do know and what we see and what's out there and what has occurred. And sometimes to reflect back to Bigfoot and recreation, and now we're seeing biblical content coming out. I wonder what goes on truly below level 7, because I've come across things of intermixing species of bugs, animals, and adjusting things with man. And I don't know if everyone that I've come across is true in fact, but it's being talked about. Not a lot, but there are people coming out with more information. Mm-hmm. Just thought I'd throw a little of those extra tidbits in for you.
Yeah, good to be thrown. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think, because, what's the need for everything? And why does every country need a department that studies ufology if there wasn't something more to the picture.
Oh, there's more. Just about everybody, I
Yeah,
think, agrees with that.
exactly.
There's well, how do they cloak? How do they go out of our sight? Bigfoot's been reported doing that a lot
Yeah.
over the years. I've talked to people. It used to be I wouldn't believe it because I lived in a three-dimensional, just like, didn't understand how everything really works through quantum physics from the atom all the way through the cosmos. Everything works through the laws of quantum physics. We used to live in a Newtonian physical, what we've been taught: feel, touch, material, physical, measurable. That's just not the end of it. There's a whole lot more going on. But anyway, it's quite interesting when you start looking into it. And uh, I forgot where I was going to go with that. About my nap time.
That's okay. And I don't want to hold you up. Hey, it's hard being young your whole life. You look fascinating.
I've
You look
had a very great life. I can't complain about a thing really. I've had I've had beautiful children. Just I've just been very fortunate to have done the things I've done, to experience the things I've experienced, and yes, I have a beautiful wife now. She's over here waving her arms. Mention her, Carrie.
Hello, wife. How are you?
She can't hear you.
Thanks for letting Ron play with us, guys. Appreciate it.
But yeah, it's been great, and I'm just going to do this until I don't do anything, I guess, because this is all I do now. I retired from business a few years ago, and I was just at that Florida conference here recently, and people are really jumping into this all over. I got another conference later, a few more weeks, and I just enjoy that the people are hooking into what I'm saying and what's being said about this,
Yeah.
because I gotta say what I think and what I believe and what I feel, and otherwise, what am I here for?
Yeah.
I have a passion for this, and I think the Bigfoot thing is what brought me into it all. It brought me into realization of how much more there really is going on besides just these beings running around out there, hairy men. And can they disappear? I was going to mention that's what I was going a while ago. Yes.
Oh, the cloaking. Yes.
Yeah. How they do that? I know how they do that. Well, I think I do. I only
Oh,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Paul Dirac, 1933, won the Nobel Prize for antimatter. Antimatter, direct exchange from energy to matter, are interchangeable. Einstein had said that earlier. E equals mc squared.
Yeah.
Energy and matter and energy are interchangeable. So a Bigfoot, through his vocal mechanism, which is very more expansive than ours, if they can find the frequency that can change their matter into energy, they would cloak out of our perception, our visual perception. And then their trackways would disappear because there's no more density to them. I think that's a simple answer. It gets into quantum physics.
Well,
And but I had that happen to me. My daughter and I, and actually Scott Nelson, when she had a sighting, and we found the trackway very deep, very human, like 1 foot in front of the other, but we couldn't even make a print in the dirt. And I followed it as long as I could. I got a picture of this in my second book, or first book, I guess it is, Voices in the Wilderness. And the trackway just stopped. And I looked around, we were trying to find where it could have gone. Up the tree, to jump to a boulder, to go in the weeds, where to go. No sign of it anywhere. And so that was a puzzle. There has to be a science behind that, and the science is the science of quantum physics. Density and matter are interchangeable, and that's just accepted now. It's been established by quantum science. So when you really realize that, you realize there's just more going on, but watch out. We don't see everything or know everything. Many people think we're King Kong on this earth, but we're not. We don't know everything there is to know. So much more to know. And I'm out there trying to find more and more every day. I'm writing another book right now, actually, and hope to expose a few more things in it. So I'm not looking for a black helicopter,
yeah.
or the men in black to come to my door, but it's enjoyable doing what I'm doing. And
Yeah. We all stand that chance of the black SUV pulling up. Always remember that. We all stand that chance. There's
that's
no nothing.
okay.
So is your book in a
They can't hurt
book?
me.
Yeah, I hear you. Is your That's a good way to look at it, really. I mean, I have to stop myself right there because you're absolutely right. It's all in the focus of one's mind and
Okay,
what your internal objective is. And if it's positive, you're going to always, have the best outcome. Billy Carson does say that too. I'm going to think about that parking space before I get to the store. And people are like, "What?"
absolutely.
And he does, and he thinks it over, and then he pulls up at this front of the store, and he pulls in, and there's that parking space he wanted.
Wow, it works.
If
It works. And time
there
is not
are
an element. You don't have to do it an hour before you go there, or 2 blocks before you go there. You can do it right just before you get there, because time is not existence. If you think it and make it happen in your head, it'll happen. And I do that all the time. I didn't know. I never heard him say that, but that's true.
Yeah, he spoke about it. Here's the thing: we all learn from each other, and that's the best point of life. I know he's well established. He reads, he does his homework, but he creates theory based upon a lot of previous information. Same as I do, same as you do, same objective, same as Ernie or Squatch or Maxine, who comes on the show here. We learn how to do that, but we need to utilize it more. That's the whole factor of
I
everything.
think if we can open up our pineal gland so it's receiving, and that's how you receive. That's why you meditate, is just
Yeah.
to calm and receive, not pray, but receive. Not that you're not supposed to ask for things, but the receptor is in your middle of your head. It's the third eye, the eye of Horus. Been written. You know what that is.
Yes.
But that is connected, I think, to our heart. Our heart has a brain. Our heart gets that gut feeling, and that heart has to be in coherence with the brain up here. So your brain up here doesn't analyze it too much. You got to go by the gut feeling, the feeling that you get inside. That will always take you in the right direction. Even though $1,000,000 might be over here and only $10 over here, your gut feeling says go over here where the $10 is. That's what you should do. Tempting, right? But I think you got to follow your gut feeling.
Yeah.
As long as it's a coherence. But you only get in coherence by meditation, by being still and receiving.
Right. And
So
I think in ways too, if we did the same thing in connections to wanting to experience more, that is how the ability to getting more is accomplished. If you study paranormal and your focus is a positive focus, you may have a positive outcome from it. Same with experiencing Bigfoot. Yeah, one thing I do want to ask you: do you think because of the cloaking and some of that, and I know it's getting a little late, and I don't want to, infringe on your day much more, but I'm very happy to see that people are learning the other side of who you are as a man and how you support life and your values to life. But where was I going with that? I'm doing what you're doing now. It is that time of day. I lost
thank
my
you.
train of thought. I apologize. It'll come to me, but we'll probably be over. I have to think about it for a second. Where was I going?
Well, we still have email and we stay
Yeah, we
connected.
do. We do. I'll keep in touch, and I do
Okay.
again want to thank you. But I'm most important. Um, a lot. I think a lot of what we cover today, people would probably say, "Hey, I wish we'd have talked maybe cryptids or this or that before." But meeting the man and understanding who you are and the facts of the truth behind you, what you've learned, your research, you're self-explanatory, and it comes like that from you. And I wish more people would. Use their ability in conversations to focus on everything except for one thing sometimes. Although one thing is it can be important. One thing can be very important, and everybody has that outlook. But we are coming up on like an hour and a half. We were a little bit late due to some technical difficulties and a microphone issue. But again, as you said, I have your email. I'll keep in touch. I promise I won't bother you. I know I did promise you video and sound. It didn't come to me yet. It was promised to me, didn't come to me yet, but I will forward that very soon in the future. And thank you once again for coming on. I'm going to let you have the rest of your afternoon to your wife, have some lunch, get some rest, and maybe we can go around too someday in the future. But don't quit what you're doing because you are the man. I mean, you have the most important piece of information in the community. And one day, I hope that you get to see and understand and hear what that Chinese, whatever it's called,
I'll know
is,
someday.
is
We'll all know
translated
everything
for you.
someday. We'll all know everything someday. You know.
Yeah.
But
But it
when I
would be,
stop doing this stuff, Michael, is when I am ascending. That's when
well,
I'll stop.
you
I'm
don't
gonna
have,
keep going. No,
pardon
ascending.
me?
I mean, when I'm ascending,
Oh,
I mean going up
ascending.
or going somewhere. Who knows
Yeah.
where? I think
We
we have a choice when we get out there too in the cosmos.
yeah,
That's
I don't know. I'm not prepared to do it. I don't feel like my life's
probably not.
completely done. And you probably have some time willing left to want to stay in the vibe, But we'll all have to face that inevitable period
Well,
of
I face it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because nothing's gonna. Well, I'm not gonna die. My body might go away, but that's all. That's no big deal.
yeah, I know, but we
You
want
know,
to have you here,
I went grocery shopping. I went grocery shopping the other day, and they wouldn't even take my kidney as a trade.
All right, Ron, that was fantastic. But listen, I do appreciate you coming on. I'm sorry about some of the mishaps getting you here. We may not have covered everything, but I think we covered some of the best things that of importance in many ways. Some people are going to probably try to friend you. You know how that is. If you do hear from Ernie or
Well, I have a
Squatchman,
website.
there's oh yeah, that's true. Why don't you give
My
that out to
website.
everybody?
It's ronmorehead.com. Pretty easy. 1 0. And it's all my books. Both my books are downloadable. So are my CDs, which have the Bigfoot sounds on them. I have a Voices in the Wilderness, which is my first book I wrote. It's my chronicle. It comes with a download of sounds that you can hear the sound I'm talking about when I talk about it. And then I have the Quantum Bigfoot, which gets into the more of the quote unquote woo woo or paranormal, but it's really quantum science. And that's what I have going right now. And I'm quite pleased with the way they're selling.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. I didn't totally expect it to go this way, but I liked it this way. Not a joke. That's just what I do. I
I
like
like
it.
shooting from the hip. Shooting from the hip's fun. It just sort of
Yeah.
sometimes you lose track of a certain way. That's why I have a PowerPoint program in my presentations at these conferences and stuff. Because otherwise, I lose track or get ahead of myself or behind myself or something like that.
You don't have them totally memorized yet?
Well, I have the physicists, real, like Tesla and Einstein and these Iraq. I have, some of those people. I got
Yeah.
their sayings memorized so I can come back with that because you're not really arguing with me if you want to try to argue that the sounds aren't right. You're arguing with the professors and the professionals that have been behind the scientific studies with these sounds. And most
Right.
people get me to their conferences because of the sounds, but I carry on through what the sounds where it's taken me. It's taken me to this other element of what's really going on. And I think that's why we're all here is to try to understand that better and try
Right.
to so we can all send in a positive way. So there.
Yeah, I agree. And again, just uh, I appreciate all your work, and I hope you have a nice afternoon, restful, peaceful afternoon, and you can get some work done. Work on your new book. We didn't get we didn't take a deep dive into that. Maybe at some point we will when it's ready to be published or something, if you'd like to. In the meantime, I'll keep track with you through Gmail because it seems you like that the best. And from all of us here at America Disclosing Uncensored, our most appreciative thanks for you coming on and recognize a little voice like me and helping me progress as I do the work that you've opened the door to.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate it all.
I do too, brother. Have a blessed day.
You too.
All
Take
right.
care.
And for all you guys out there, thanks. You've listened to America Disclosing Uncensored with Mr. Ron Morehead. Fascinating guest, fascinating man, very intelligent, very informative. Take what he said and utilize it in your life. Hug somebody today. It'll feel great. Thanks again. I'll see you next time on America Disclosing Uncensored.